Good evening. I will call to order the Smyrna Municipal Planning Commission meeting for February 4th of 2021. And with that, I'm going to ask Mark Atkins to lead us in prayer and Tim Slate to lead us in the pledge. You can stand, please.
Father, we come to you this evening, Lord, just thankful for yet another day here, Father, and just the ability to come and do the town's business. We pray for discernment and wise decisions as we go through our agenda tonight. Lord, we also pray for all the people that serve our community here, fire, police, our employees, Lord, that you just continue to watch over them and keep them safe. Father, as we deal with the COVID pandemic, we continue to pray for the families that are affected by this, whether they've lost loved ones or they've fallen ill or whatever the case may be, Father. We just pray your blessings on them and their families. Lord, continue to bless this community as you have. Lead, guide, and direct us. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Mark and Tim. The next item on our agenda is citizens' comments. Kevin?
For none tonight.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of the January 7th, 2021 meeting. Everybody on the commission, has everybody had a chance to review them? Are there any changes or corrections that are needed? Counselor, they're in order?
They're in order as to form, Chairman.
Move for approval.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Old business, the first item we have is site plans Duofast. Kevin, as I recall, this has been,
They have requested that this be deferred one more month. They were not able to get the materials together. It became a bigger issue, I think, for them to address than they thought it was going to be, and so they haven't received those materials yet to revise that you all had asked for, and so they did ask for it to be deferred one more month.
okay, so we would need to act on that if we decided, we would need to have a motion if we decided to.
Motion to defer, yes.
To defer, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll move to defer.
I have a motion to defer. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and second to defer. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion to defer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business. Annexation and plan of service request, RHB LLC, 1294 South Lowry Street, annexation and R3 zoning.
Yeah, this is a request to annex one tract of land. It's 13.16 acres. It is addressed as 1294 South Lowry Street. It can be accessed from South Lowry Street. There is a crossing across the railroad tracks at that location. It is not it's not a signalized intersection, so to speak. There's no mast arms or anything like that, but it is you can cross there. It also has access. There's a drive that comes from Corner Drive. There is a house on the property. They have requested it be annexed and zoned R3. The surrounding zoning is a mix of R3 in town and RM and commercial general in Rutherford County. There is a tract of land to the east of this, kind of southeast, that does have that commercial general zoning in the county. The future land use plan would support low-density residential 0 to 4 units per acre development in this area, so certainly R3 would be consistent with that. Sewer is available at this site from Burton Farms, and this area, this area does lie within a consolidated utility district service boundary. And they have indicated to us that their infrastructure is adequate to meet our fire flow requirements there. This is, again, I did say it does have access from Lowry Street currently. I think we would recommend if this is annexed and development occurs when we receive those plats, that be closed off for this site. We certainly don't want to increase traffic across that at that intersection and across something that isn't a signalized crossing. So it would still need to remain in place because it is the only access to the property to the southeast. But as far as access to this track, it wouldn't be accessed any longer. I think that's all that I have.
The access off of Lowry you're talking about, is that more of a gravel type access?
It's just a gravel driveway, yes.
Yeah, and is it, there's a commercial property, right, adjacent to it?
There is, well, in Smyrna, yes, along South Lowry, that is the C3 zone tracks, and there is an existing businesses there that are located there, as well as in the county. There is a business on the adjacent track to the southeast on this side of the railroad track, so to speak.
So for the public, with your recommendation not to include this as an access into this, how would we address this, or where would it be addressed?
It would be addressed at when the subdivision plats come back to you
Okay.
all, yeah.
Okay. But otherwise, we would have access through it through Corner and Burton Farms, correct?
Correct.
And from what you're seeing, and I mean, from what I'm looking at the map, the request is very similar to what's currently surrounding this tract of land.
Yes, and the zoning in town is R3. It is RM in Rutherford County, which is similar to R1. Most of Rutherford County has that zoning, where there is development. But I think it is a very consistent zone with what we would see, or would expect to see in this area.
Okay. Questions for Kevin?
Kevin, what's southeast of there, I guess on the bottom right corner, going towards Murfreesboro? Is there another home or anything there for access now?
There is a commercial business of some kind. There's some tractor trailers parked in there.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what type of business it is.
So if that closes off, they'll have to go back through that subdivision to get out?
No, they would still have access. That access that crosses Lowry provides access to both tracks, so they would still be able to go back to Lowry Street. It would just close it off as far as this
Subdivision.
for this part of this
Okay.
parcel. Yes.
And then they've got Burton Farms and Corner, they've got
Yes.
an entrance and exit, so to
Right.
speak.
They would have two ways in and out of the development. Yes, still.
Other comments or questions?
Just to clarify, we don't have to address that at this moment. We'll hit that on the next round, right?
Right. Once it is, assuming it is annexed, when the subdivision plaques come in, we would look at it at that point. Yes. I wanted to bring it up to you, so you're.
This is just for annexation
Right,
purposes.
but if you look at the aerial photographs, it's obviously there is access, there's a driveway there. It actually is primarily on, at the CSX right-of-way for at least a portion of it, but it does come into this track as well. And that's why it has a 1294 South Lowry Street address, I'm assuming.
Okay. Further questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item under new business is a rezoning request. Greg Waldron, Old Nashville Highway and Jeannie Lane, rezoning R6 to PRD.
Yes, this is a request for rezoning. It's one tract of land, so 91.66 acres, currently zoned R6. And they have requested a PRD zoning. The surrounding zoning is a mix of R6, C2, and PRD, which is the Ashton Creek Farms development, which is across Old Nashville Highway from the site. And then it's also, does abut Laverne. There is zoning in Laverne of R2 as well as A, which is an agricultural zoning in Laverne. Future land use plan would support a mix, an office retail multifamily mix on a part of this, and then all multifamily of 10 to 15 units per acre on the remaining part of this parcel. Did say that the proposed PRD is for 1,333 units. That has changed as of, we did get revised plans yesterday. The request now is actually 1,283. It did go down by 50 units. So that's for the whole site, all four phases or blocks, as they call them. It would be a total of 1,283 now, not 1,333. This is obviously it's a large-scale development. with 4 different apartment complexes really in all together as in one development. Access would be coming from a couple of different locations. They would be off of Old Nashville Highway with a new roadway. And it would line up with the access to the apartments across the street, so that kind of, it would be still at the same, you would only have still really only one intersection there. It would also have access to Jeannie Lane through an extension of Needham Drive. And we also did recommend, and they did add to their plans, there's a second road to the east, further back, that would also connect to the adjoining property to the east. It would also, you would eventually have 3 different connections there, and ways to get in and out from this development, either to Old Nashville Highway, Sam Ridley Parkway, or eventually once Jeannie Lane is extended all the way to Motlow Boulevard. Again, it is 4 different complexes we're proposing. There's 4 different kind of distinct architectural plans. They all meet design review. And we did have one comment about Block 4, and that has been addressed regarding adding some brick or stone as an accent there, and that's been done. They all do meet design review. This is the overall density, especially now that they have reduced it by 50 units. It's actually a little below what's allowed with R6, so it's not an increase in density, but as far as the overall site, but it is utilizing, there's a proposed park of about 14.6 acres or so that is, will be more or less, it's an amenity for all of the apartments that are proposed. There will also be amenities within each complex as well. So, but by utilizing all that, you do have the density, the total density again is less than what's allowed currently with R6. But this does allow for some of that density to be transferred amongst the whole site, and not as they divide it up with the public roads that are proposing and that sort of thing. Within your packet, we did include the pattern book, and it does have some road cross sections as well that do show some interior landscape islands within the parking or within the public roadways. With also some parallel parking, and not all of it will have parallel parking, but part of the locations would have some parallel parking as well within the right-of-way, but still with the travel lanes the same as you would have under a typical roadway that you would see. And so, but that is something that is new and different than what we have normally seen in Smyrna. So. But it is something that's it is being used certainly in other communities and very nearby to us, in the Avenue development in Murfreesboro and other things, was a similar type project to some of the projects that are down there. So, we'll go through the comments. We did ask for a revised fire apparatus auto turn. There's a couple locations the fire department noted that it appears that it would leave the asphalt. They responded and said it doesn't. So I do want to have the fire department look at that again. And that's something that still needs to be looked at a little more closely. Fire department access must be provided within 150 feet of all buildings. That is, it's really more of an informational comment that the fire department made, just so that they know that is required, and they have indicated that that would be provided. We'd asked for calculation on the total amount of required open space and then the total open space square footage provided. They have provided that. It is, what is required is about 13.8 acres, and they have 16.9 provided. About 7.5 of that is within the various complexes themselves, scattered amongst those 4 different phases. And then a big portion of it will be, again, in that, it's about 14.6 acres of it is total within the large space that would be owned and maintained by basically all 4 complexes together. So that comment has been addressed. We asked for the right-of-way width. They put the road in between blocks 2 and 4. but they didn't have the width, and that is shown now, so we can remove that comment. We did, just at this scale, it's difficult to see or tell if the drive aisle widths, and these are the entrances from the public streets within the development. We want to be sure that there were at least 2 lanes on all of those, and they've indicated that is the case on all of those, so that can be removed. Comment number 9 is really a moot point now, because it was regarding when they still had 1,333 units. Now it's going to be 1,283. That is a moot point, and it can be removed. Comment 10, we've made a comment about the parking. The total parking provided exceeded requirements. In the previous iteration, 3 of the complexes were quite a bit short, or 2 of them were quite a bit short, and then Block 4, which is Phase 4, exceeded the requirements by a pretty large amount. And so it did correct the issue for the whole site, but we were concerned about the practicality of if everything is in that Phase 4, in Phase 1 or 2, or down near the Old Nashville Highway, it may not be something that's really usable for folks there. And so we'd asked them to provide a more balanced approach to how parking would be provided. And what they have done with the reduction in density is they have addressed that issue, and so that there is parking provided really on every phase now. So that parking, that's really a moot point now as well because of the reduction in the density. We did ask for, just for knowledge and so we would know it, we asked for an approximation of the expected parking spaces that would be provided via parallel parking, and it's approximately 65. So that is part of the overall total of parking within this overall site. Comments 12 was just regarding the cross sections of some of the street cross sections, some of the locations of which cross section would be where we're in conflict, and that has been addressed, so that can be removed. And again, as I stated earlier, we've made a comment on Phase 4 to add brick or stone as an accent, and that has been done, so that can be corrected as well or removed. Comment 14 is kind of an informational comment. It might need to stay with if you make a recommendation tonight. Because of the landscape medians that would be within the streets and any other landscape areas within the public right-of-ways, the town will require a maintenance agreement with the Property Owners Association for maintenance of those areas. So the town wouldn't be maintaining those landscaped areas. Obviously, we'll maintain the streets and everything, not the landscaped areas. So that covers my comments on this. Certainly the developer has representation here, would certainly like to address the commission as well. I'll certainly be happy to answer any questions that you have as well.
Okay. Kevin, maybe we should level set to begin with. This property itself is currently zoned R6, which would be the zoning for apartments, correct?
Correct.
And this isn't a new zoning, it's been zoned this way for a very long time.
Yes.
Okay. So by going from an R6 to a PRD, as a planner, do you see advantages to that, and if so, what?
I certainly see advantages. There's several. I mean, obviously, it provides, the town has a little bit more control over the layout and everything with it. Well, obviously, we see everything on the front end. We know what we're getting on the front end and have an approval of it now. I think it also benefits, to me, it also, because there's some pretty steep topography on some of that open space, that they're going to have some walking trails and some things in there, and a disc golf course is part of it and different things. Having that provision for them to still be able to kind of transfer that density, they're not increasing the density at all, but they're able to utilize the density on maybe a smaller area and have the area that's more difficult to develop, but also more difficult from the standpoint of well, it would have a more negative effect, I guess you might say, for the environmental piece of this as well.
Meaning if the more that we're allowed to leave things undisturbed or less disturbed, it's better for the overall environment. Okay.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I think that it accomplishes that and provides an amenity certainly for the neighborhood on a larger scale than you might see on an individual scale, individual development, individual complex scale, I mean. They still have those amenities within each complex, but it would also provide that larger scale, the walking trails and the other things they're wanting to provide in that larger space that's all together. So, I mean, I think it's certainly, when you are able to kind of master plan a whole site and see it all at one time, it just provides a lot of, you can address a lot of issues that you might miss if you look at it at piecemeal.
The other thing that I think important in that a lot of folks are going to, grab at or gravitate toward would be a discussion of traffic. And did we not have a traffic study in place for the commercial piece that was developing, and will this be updated with this, or has it already been updated? If you could speak to us about that and what that might involve.
Yeah, we did have a traffic study for the commercial piece of this, and it has been updated to include this development as well. That's still under review by our engineering staff, but certainly it has been submitted to us, and we are looking at it. There was a lot of improvements that are going to happen to Old Nashville Highway, certainly. Some of that, the town is working on a project at the intersection itself through a CMAQ grant, congestion mitigation grant. And then the developer's going to be making quite a bit of improvements as well, including signalizing the Jeannie Lane, Old Nashville Highway intersection and other things. So, so all that being said, certainly by the time, based on the timing of when some of those improvements would be made, by the time these apartments would be hitting the road, so to speak, and being occupied, a lot of those improvements would be in place.
So again, our focus and our scope tonight is we're looking at the rezoning request. We've got an idea of what they're going to do within what's going to be rezoned, but basically we're rezoning from an R6 to a PRD, which would probably be more advantageous to us due to the scale of what we're looking at.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think, Matt, would you like to come up and give us your name and address? And I'm sure we've got questions about this for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Murrell. Matt Taylor from SEC, located at 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So if you will, I'll run through a brief presentation to hit some high points, and then myself and the applicants are certainly here to answer any questions that you might have. So I've got Mr. Greg Waldron behind me of the Waldron family, as well as Mr. Ross Bradley of TDK. I'm sure all of you know that the Waldrons have owned this property for many decades, I believe, and this is really the last piece of this. As they've looked at this property, and over the years, they've talked about doing what you call a legacy project. And so they had previously developed a relationship with TDK on a previous project. They saw the level of expertise, the level of quality of design, and the amenities, and just their overall projects that they completed throughout the Southeast, and thought TDK would be a perfect partner on this. And so they brought TDK into this. They will partner through all these projects together. And so, we have termed this the Vintage as the overall project. Each individual block will probably be something at the Vintage, but overall it will be the Vintage. Kevin did a good job walking through most of the highlights of the book. Did want to stress a few things. As he said, this is the rear of the Stonecrest commercial property. This would be the bulk of the property, everything that's left. Stone Trace Commons will have several commercial uses, including a gas station, restaurants, and several other potential high-quality commercial developments. Our request here is not to decrease quality or increase density. It is really to give us some design flexibility to create what we think is a better project for not only us and our tenants in the future, but as well as for the town and all of your residents. A few of those examples of what we're asking for are shallower front setbacks on our building. We want to pull those closer to the street so it creates a better streetscape, a better pedestrian scale environment. We're wanting to increase the building heights. We would like to do some 4-story buildings here. We intend to do elevators in those buildings. And that also lets us condense our development footprint to preserve more natural area on the property. We have requested for parallel spaces along the street coming off of Genie. I think that will continue the Needham Drive name there. We think that will also add to the streetscape and the pedestrian scale of this development, something unique to the area. The other street, we've requested to do a landscape median. As Kevin said, we're completely on board with doing a maintenance agreement so that the Owners Association maintains that landscaping. We'll have street trees and decorative lighting along our streets as well, again, just to enforce and promote the walkability of the neighborhood. We have only proposed quality building materials, so brick, stone, and cement board. We will not have any EIFS, no vinyl in this project. As Kevin said, we are meeting the parking requirements for the town in every block, exceeded in some instances. We know how important that is to y'all, so we wanted to respect that. We have also exceeded the open space, not only by providing amenities, pools, pool houses, dog parks on each individual block, but we've got this very unique 15-acre park at the top of the hill. I can't think of a single one of my projects over the last 15 years that has offered something that unique, especially in this sort of dense environment. So I think that'll be something that sets this project apart and something Smyrna, as well as my clients, can point to as a good example in the future.
Matt, will that become an amenity of some sort, or do you know that?
Absolutely. We'll have different sorts of amenities up there. We'll have some walking trails, some disc golf, just some natural areas. So it'll be a multitude of areas up there. So we'll have different programming for different types of people.
But it will be developed out. It's not just going to be left as green
Exactly.
space.
Yes, sir. That is exactly right. We have decreased our density, as Kevin said. We're at about 14 units to the acre right now, I think, which is about half a unit to the acre under. It's about 50 total units less than what the property is currently entitled for. We've provided sidewalks internal to each block as well as along every street here. We love sidewalks in all of our developments that we do. This will connect us back to the proposed commercial that's currently getting developed, as well as the existing commercial, and eventually to connect over to Motlow College. So we look forward to our residents walking to those restaurants, walking to school, walking to business, walking to work. We're doing extensive road improvements. Some of that is with the commercial. That original traffic study did make an assumption on how many units would be back here, but we have updated that. That's went through one level of review with Public Works already. We resubmitted an updated study yesterday based on their comments. Some of those improvements are widening of Old Nashville, as well as a signal at Genie and Old Nashville, as Kevin said. And then specifically with this project, we will add a dual left, an additional left turn lane on Sam Ridley onto Old Nashville to help queue spaces there. And then, of course, we'll do the sidewalks. We're wanting to keep as many cars off the street as possible, so we'll be building sidewalks along all of our streets internally, as well as Old Nashville Highway. We feel very strongly about these design elements. We have voluntarily came in with the PRD. We've given up control, really giving it back to y'all. And we think that those design elements will help present a better project for not only ourselves, but as well as for the town of Smyrna. You've got some wonderful projects here. We want to raise that bar even higher. We think that each of these design elements, specifically that 15-acre park, will create a sense of community. The sidewalks will further reinforce that by getting people out and about, seeing each other, walking to the neighborhood commercial and back. A couple of kind of details to point out. It is a lot of units, we understand that, but there's a part of that is that this will be developed over time. We do have 4 blocks. We think this is going to be about a 12-year project at today's pace. So that's about three years per project. So about a year of planning, year of construction, a year of lease up, give or take on that. So it's not going to happen next year. This is going to be well into 2030, 2035 before this project is completed.
Hey, Matt, can I ask you 2 questions about that?
Yes, sir.
Is the plan to build out the blocks by the number, as in, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yes, sir.
Or we work backwards?
Yes, sir. We've done that one would go first, then 2, 3, 4 is how we envision that.
Okay. And then the park, where in that build-out phase would you be doing the park property?
So we obviously have to get the road back there, and so I think our vision was that that would occur between the 3rd and the 4th block. Getting over to my, yes, sir. So in between the 3rd and the 4th phase is whenever we would do the physical improvements to that, because that would be when we could get a street back there. And I think that was all I had.
Matt, where do you see that falling in a time window, potentially?
So I would say for the park,
Yeah, I mean, Tony's question.
I would say about year 9 or so.
So it'll be a little while before that's enhanced.
Yes, sir.
Will we have, in your opinion, enough in the way of open spaces and amenities until we get to that to add kind of the, I guess, the biggest amenity portion of this?
Yes, sir. So each individual block will have its own pool, clubhouse, dog park. So it will basically, each block will have the same amenities that most of your modern apartment complexes would have. This would be kind of icing on the cake over and above what most of the newer ones have, and those have done very, very well. This is a very urban type design that you see here with pulling the streets up, or pulling the buildings up close to the street, the parallel spaces, and those are very standard. One thing TDK tries to do on their local projects, they build across the southeast, have different investors come in. They like to overdevelop really their, over-amenitize their projects locally, because they will bring those investors in, point to this and say, this is a prize project for us. And so that's what they want to do here as well.
Matt, can you talk to us about some TDK projects that are local that we might be able to go out and look at, or maybe we've already seen?
Yes, sir. So a couple of that are very accessible are going to be along Medical Center Parkway in Murfreesboro. One of those is directly behind Jonathan's, right in front of the Embassy Suites. I think that one it's a combination of 2 buildings. One is a 4-story building, one is a 5-story. And so it is very urban, just like this, parallel spaces. I've actually got some pictures, if you'd like for me to hand those around tonight, showing that streetscape presence. And so they want to bring that same element here. Another one is just down the road from that, behind the new Krispy Kreme in Murfreesboro. One of those projects is about 205 units. The other is about 250, if I'm not mistaken. So it's comparable to a couple of these blocks. A couple of these blocks are going to be a little bigger than that. So both of those have some very good design elements.
Is there a targeted market, or do you see certain types of individuals who seem to be, that want to live more in this type of development, or who are we looking at? Who are our neighbors going to be here?
So I think that you're going to see a lot of single people. Our mixes here are a lot of 1 and 2 bedrooms. We will have very few 3-bedroom units here. It is a very young professional or an older single professional. TDK has seen a lot of single females. One of the interesting stats I heard them tell me the other day was that 70% of their single females have a dog at their complexes. That's why dog parks are such a big part of their marketing, really. If you don't have a dog park, that lady's not coming to rent your apartment. And so they are very professionals. These rents, they're looking to set a new mark in rents in Smyrna, so they are not going to be low income. I think their average income at their facilities on Medical Center that I just mentioned are well over $100,000 per tenant. So these are people that are choosing to live this lifestyle. They're people that do not want the maintenance. They want the freedom. They want the commercial nearby. They want to walk. They want to be social.
Okay.
Just one clarification point. You'd mentioned the dog park. I'm only seeing one on with block 1. You'd mentioned it in each section. Is that?
I think that's right. Yeah, there will be one in each one, so we probably just called it out in that one, and they'll vary in size from project to project. So there will definitely be one in each block.
Okay.
We'll do a better job of labeling that.
Just a real quick question, and it's probably on here, but there's so much to look at, my eyes aren't focusing very well, but Is there any need in this subdivision for bus stops or anything like that? Have I overlooked that, or is there a need for it?
I don't think there's anything in there, so I don't think you've missed it. I think typically what we see, yes, they will probably, assuming if they have any children that are, based on their market, they may
Well,
not
that's why
have
I'm
a lot
asking
of
the
them.
question. If it's a
but-
lot of young single, I don't,
Yeah, so we have traditionally not seen that particular
Yeah.
demand. I believe in their two projects in Murfreesboro, there's about 450 is a round number of units there. I think they might have one or two children in the whole complex, and, or in both complexes combined. And those tend to be a teenager age that might be driving already, does not need the same level of support that a younger child might.
and your dumpster locations will be suited in a way they're kind of less intrusive, I assume.
Yes, sir, and it's very possible we may use compactors in lieu of. One thing we've not talked about, but is very popular in this, is using a concierge, what they call a concierge trash service. You really kind of set your trash outside your door at night, and somebody magically makes it disappear while you're sleeping, and they take it to the compactor for you. That's very popular in their other developments.
Matt, Kevin touched on it, but how do you feel about the timeline with the city development, with the roads and your timeline in development?
So I think that all those road improvements will be well ahead of our first buildings coming online. I think we projected our first building not even being completed for about 2 years, and I think they're already working on some of those roadway improvements there today. I don't know the exact timing of the towns, but I know that what is being done there with the first phase, the commercial, is well underway there. So I think we were dedicating right away as well as building some laneage with that commercial.
Charles, do you see that as being kind of accurate? I mean, as far as the improvements we're talking about?
And those improvements they're doing utility moves now, and we've improved the poles and signals at the Genie Lane on Nashville Highway, so
Okay.
that's already come through.
Right. You know, one of the things whether this was coming or not, I'm glad we're seeing that intersection being improved there at where Walgreens and Old Nashville Highway and all that cross. The fact that there's going to be a light and a signal there at the Genie Lane crossing too is going to be almost invaluable. That stacks up so bad now. I think there's another left, if we've understood that right, potentially.
Once they're done, it'll be like a 5-lane section through there, all the way to the second entrance to Lowe's, and then after that, it will taper back down to a 3-lane where the apartments here. It'll be a 3-lane, so they will be able to get their left turn lane in, and then as you get to the city limits sign, then it will go back to a 2-lane.
Okay.
And Charles, I'm going to make an assumption that there will be a synchronization with the light at Genie and Old Nashville, as well as Old Nashville and Sam Ridley, so to help with the flow of traffic there.
Right, we have the ITS project currently under construction now that will come down Sam Ridley and incorporate those lights back into our traffic management center.
Okay.
Well, you know, we started off this conversation, and Chairman brought this up. It's currently zoned as an R6, and, you know, many of us in Smyrna have labored over the fact that, and I'm just being quite open and transparent here, labored about the fact that our constituents out there aren't real fond of apartment complexes, as we aren't. But when something is zoned in the fashion that this already is, I hope the public understands that we don't control that. We don't have the authority to change their zoning, right? So they have the proper zoning to go ahead, if they wished, and just build an apartment complex as a general rule of thumb. And it wouldn't have to meet all the design reviews and things necessarily that we're seeing in the package that you've delivered us tonight. So some of the things I've heard you say was, you know, the amenities in each block, the 14 or 15 roughly acres that will be added somewhere along in the process with amenities on that open space, that hill. You've got elevator-driven units in some of these, and so some of our aging population might even find that attractive to live somewhere where they don't have to climb steps. The zoning density on this one's at 14 units per acre, whereas R6 would allow about 14 and a half units per acre. So you've down zoned in a sense and brought us a more quality and appearable product than what we could expect to see if it were just a general apartment complex. Sidewalk, streetscaping, lighting, that urban look when you come in, I think is something we're seeing in other cities around us, Franklin, Nashville, Brentwood, some of those places. So TDK does a good product, and I hope people do get an opportunity to take a look at some of their work. You don't get to see what we're seeing up here tonight as far as design review looks, but it's an attractive product as well. So, and I'm not knocking any apartment complexes anywhere. I don't want to name any names, but there are some older complexes in town that don't look as great. But if we have to have a zoning here for an apartment complex to take place, and we can't change that, I think this is what we're looking for to some degree. So I appreciate you guys working on it, putting this package together, and giving us something that we feel like looks pretty doggone attractive, even though it is something that otherwise we might have said no to, right?
Yes, sir.
So I don't mean that in a negative way, but apartments are apartments, and that's what it is. People have to have a place to live. Some people don't want to own. Some people do want to rent, and they want a quality place to do it. So I appreciate you just putting this package together. It looks pretty attractive to me tonight. So.
Thank you. We agree with that wholeheartedly and hope everybody else does as well. So we appreciate the time.
Any other questions for Matt while we have him up here?
Yeah, you made a comment that elevators in the 4-story buildings only.
So I think we have 4-story buildings in blocks 1, 2, and 3, and I know at least blocks 1 and 2 will have elevators. The back block, number 4, we're actually going to do some traditional garden style back there. There are 3 stories, but we're also going to do a townhouse style unit back there. And so it's a little different than anything I have seen. TDK is currently building some of those in Mount Juliet, so those would definitely not have elevators.
Other questions?
Yeah, well, Kevin, you may or may not know this, the height of the buildings, what's the max they can do now as far as fire protection?
Well, we certainly have 5-story buildings in town, you know, so I mean, with the hospital and
Well, some of the
other
topography
buildings,
here may,
the hotels and everything.
yeah,
I mean, we'll have to look at those as far as but I mean, everything, they're within, I think 70s is tall,
right.
is what they're looking at. Some of them is 60. And we've got buildings, and in some of those, what we're worried about on the height of the building is what's the highest floor.
Right.
If you have 15 or 20 feet of roof above it, I mean, obviously it can be on fire, but you're not having to worry about rescuing people at that point.
Because one of the hotels had that, had
Yeah.
the top
Right,
built
and
up.
we
so-
certainly have some of the hotels and the hospital being one part of Nissan as well. It certainly exceeds a lot of that height. So, I mean, they're within what we can respond to. I'm not worried
Okay.
about that piece of it. Yeah.
Other questions for Matt or Kevin? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the staff comment.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Kevin, I think we're ready for sketch plats. The first one, maybe the only one, is
It's the only
Shorts
sketch
Crossing.
plat. Yeah, this is a sketch plat. We don't see these too much anymore because typically the sketch plat really, the PRD plan kind of takes the place of that. So, but this is a plan that's utilizing the existing zoning, which is R1 on this parcel. This is a sketch plat for development called Shorts Crossing. Let me get to my comments here. It has, it's 2 tracts of land totaling 15.78 acres. There's 28 lots proposed. Again, it is zoned R1. Proposal is to extend an existing street. It's a part of the adjacent subdivision called Liberty Hill. Extend it into the site with 25 lots, and then there are 3 lots proposed along Jefferson Pike, and their access would be from Jefferson Pike. There are 2 existing houses which would remain, and then 1 new house, one new on the lot there. Again, and they're showing a couple of different phases, with primarily the Jefferson Pike being phase 1, and then the other part, a new street being phase 2. We do have a few comments. These proposed homes are larger here, and so it does have an extra, a higher minimum fire flow requirement. And so that was comment number 1, and there is a little bit of question of whether or not we could get to that 1,750 gallons per minute from our utility department. At this point, we don't know for sure because we haven't received any construction plans or anything yet. That would come after the preliminary plat comes in. So that was really kind of informational for them, as they may have to look at sprinkler systems, depending on what the fire flow ends up being once we get to the true numbers, and can actually flow some hydrants and that sort of thing. Lot 28 does have access, as I said, will be access from Jefferson Pike. Fire flow on Jefferson Pike will be fine once the road improvements are made and the new water lines are put in place, which will be kind of in the early part of that development of the roadway. But at this time, it would not have adequate fire flow, so they'll have to look at that again, maybe potentially having a sprinkler system in that. And so again, those first 2 are really informational for the developer as much as anything, just so that they're aware of it. We had a few other comments to submit the 911 approval for Mary Alice Drive street name. We still do need to have that, so we need to keep that one. I'll go through the rest of them and then come back to comment 4. I know that's one we've had a lot of discussion with the developer about, so I'll come back to that one. Comment 5, there is an area they're showing within the street near lot 15 there, which will be kind of another interior kind of a landscape area in the public right of way, and we are kind of similar to what we looked at on the previous project. We would have to have an agreement with the HOA for maintenance of that area. I mentioned the mail kiosk in that comment because the original plan, they actually had the mail kiosk within that landscape island. They have since moved that because we actually recommended they move it to the open space near lot 20. They're showing it along the main street at lot 21 is where they're wanting to do that now. So that would need to, we might amend that comment a little bit, but we would need to keep that comment regarding the agreement. There was a typo in note 11, that's been taken care of. And we had asked the question, 4 of the lots are showing with a 50-foot minimum front setback, and they have indicated those are so that they can have, there is a minimum lot width that has to be met at the front setback line. And in R1, that's 100 feet. And so that extra setback is there for that purpose. However, there is also provision in the zoning ordinance that that can be reduced down to 70 feet on cul-de-sacs and turnarounds like and so they could actually still have a 35-foot setback potentially there. My main concern is lot 8, that the building envelopes get pretty tight on lot 8 with that 50-foot setback, and so that's my main concern. I don't want to create a lot that's going to force a BZA review. I'd rather address it on the front end. So, so then they might could look at that and may still be able to do a shorter setback there and still meet the zoning ordinance of 35 feet. That's not an issue. I'll come back to we did look at the overall layout and did recommend looking at a stub street into the Johns property to the west. The developer does wish to not do that. They would prefer keeping this internal, just having the one access. We looked at it primarily just from the standpoint of traffic flow in and out and providing another way in and out to this development. There, with only 25 lots, it's not meeting any kind of threshold in the fire code or anything where that would be a mandatory thing or anything like that. We were just looking at it. It's almost a standard thing we do on any development is look at those road connections or potential road connections. That's the only vacant tract really that would potentially connect to this because you have core property on a big portion of it, and then you obviously have Jefferson Pike, and then you have one small tract that it does connect potentially connect a little bit to the east there. So anyway, there's about 11 acres or so there, and so that's when we had made that recommendation. It's not something that I guess it was a recommendation we made, but we're not, if the planning commission is amenable to their layout, it's not something we're worried too much about just because it doesn't meet that fire code requirements that we would typically want to be sure we see it. And it's really not, that's really the only tract that might potentially develop in this area in a reality. And it has a stub at Catherine Grace too, with a temporary cul-de-sac now, so, as well, so it still could be connected if needed be. And I would not want to make a connection through any of these where you would have a road connection to Jefferson Pike, because then it would become a major cut through, and we don't want to see that. I wouldn't recommend it anyway. So that's not what we were trying to achieve at all. It was really just so. The developer's here. If you have any questions to him, or if you have any questions to me, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we've gone through a huge pendulum swing where we've gone to, from 1,300 or 1,200 and whatever apartments to, 28 lots here?
28 total lots, but two existing, really 26 new lots on a 15,000 square foot minimum lot size.
Yeah, and I bring that up because I know that and I'll put my council hat on. I've had several of my council colleagues mention from time to time that we're not seeing the R1 developments where you have the opportunity for, and I'm not sure how to phrase it other than executive homes, where you're getting into the bigger lots and the bigger builds on the lot and the more expensive type homes to kind of add to that mix of housing that we have in Smyrna. I know that we see a lot of PRDs with smaller densities, or not larger densities, and smaller lots. We've seen some R3s, but we're not really seeing this product. And I think it's an important thing, especially from, I'll put on the economic development hat now, as we continue to draw in or want to attract execs from companies like Nissan or some of the ancillary companies and some of the other companies that may be taking a look at this. I think this is something very attractive that could potentially be offered and may, if successful, lead to more development of something similar here. But to clarify, as far as a stub, there's nothing in our ordinance based upon the size of this development that would require that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Chairman, you wear a lot of hats.
I do. My wife's got a couple more when I get home.
Well, I've got one hat I wear too, and because I'm involved in this, I'm not going to vote or speak
Okay,
to it
if you'll-
tonight. You can count me as abstaining.
Mark, not participating or voting in the discussion. Questions for Kevin, or does anyone see it? Would anybody find it beneficial to bring the developer or developer's representative forward?
Question on the lift station, because I know the topography of this area. Once that lift station's put in, is the city responsible for maintenance on that from point forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any, later on down the road, as Jefferson Pike develops, is there any way to get another line in there? Because that's, the back of some of these homes are, I think, a little higher up on that hillside.
That's probably a question that our utilities probably have to, I don't know exactly how it all would flow. And we are putting, sewer main in Jefferson Pike as part of the extension.
Right.
And so, or the widening rather.
Mm-hmm.
And so could this eventually gravity back there? I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. And and our utilities department, I don't believe it has a representative here tonight, so.
Well, another question for him would be, will this station, it pumps into, it said Matthew Miller, right? That's where it's going
Yes.
to pump into?
Yes.
Probably right there is it, the property line breaks. I know it looks like there's a area there they probably tie into. Is that line on Matthew Miller and Catherine Grace large enough to handle this capacity?
Yeah, there wasn't a concern about that. no,
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, let's go Tim and Tony. Tim, with your motion, are you requiring,
With staff comments.
with staff comments, is that to include staff, comment 4 to include the Stub Street or not to include that?
Not to include.
Not to include. Okay, Tony, are you good with that?
Yes. Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve with staff comments with the exception of comment 4. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and please make sure to indicate Mark not voting or participating. Final plats. Our first item is Morton Lane, right-of-way abandonment, Morton Lane and Rocky Fork, Amelville Road. Kevin?
Yeah, this is the final plat for, it's at the Morton Lane, Rocky Fork, Amelville Road intersection. It's in the R3 zone. It's only 6/10 of an acre, and it's only one lot. There's a couple of things going on with the plat. One would be to dedicate the new right-of-way for the realignment of Morton Lane, which was required as a part of the Blakeney development, which is just on the west side of Rocky Fork, Amelville Road. And then later on in your agenda, toward the end, we have a request. It's a mandatory referral. The developers at Blakeney have requested that the old right-of-way of Morton Lane be abandoned by the town, and that they obtain ownership with that, and it would be combined in the all of lot, what they're showing as the area in between the old and the new road, as well as that old right-of-way would be combined together and would be done as a part of this plat to become Lot 1, what they're labeled Lot 1 there. And so obviously that's something you all would look at separately later on. This plat, though, we did have some comments. Number one, we did ask for them, we had not, at the time of the plat was submitted, we didn't have a formal letter of request. We did receive that, so that comment 1 can be removed. We asked them to label the ownership of Lot 1. That is shown, it's not shown on the lot, but it is shown on the plat now, so that can be taken off. Comment 3 is a standard comment that they do have to provide the signatures of the owners and CUD prior to submittal to us for town signatures and prior to recording. So we need to keep that one. Comment 4, there are some sewer improvements, and so we asked them to submit those sewer line plans to us. So we do still need to receive those. They had their certification for a private subsurface system was shown on the plat. It was no longer needed, so they asked them to remove that, so they have done that one. And they had a certification of public works, which is not in our ordinance at all. I don't know where that one came from, so we asked them to remove that one. So 5 and 6 can be removed. The proposed, number 7, the proposed sewer extension is located partially on private property that is not included as a part of this plat, so there would have to, we are going to need an easement to be dedicated for that, and that could be done separately on that lot. So they would need to keep number 7. We asked them to show a public utility easement for utilities that are located on Lot 1, and that has been taken care of, so it can be removed. And then They had shown just the sewer lines, but they didn't show, there's some of it was existing and they were showing, and some of it was new. And we'd ask them just to label what's new and what's existing, and that has been addressed as well. So comment number 9 can be removed. And then comment 10 was a comment from CUD. That's a kind of a standard comment, so we would need to keep 10. So we're just looking at 3, 4, 7, and 10 will be, and those are, would still need to be included as a part of any approval. And I believe that's all that I've got.
Staff recommending approval with these
Yes.
comments.
Yes.
Questions for Kevin? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item under final plat, Stewart's Creek Cottages, 4150 and 4200 Morton Lane, owner developer Land Solutions.
Yeah, this is the final plat of the Stewart's Creek Cottages. This is one we have seen through zoning as well as through the preliminary plat. And so it's 19.96 acres and a PRD. It's 77 lots. There was one existing house that would remain, and then 76 new lots, meaning the 38 single family or attached single families, but 38 lots, two units in a building. We had a few comments. Primarily, these were, for the most part, were from Consolidated Utility District, and so we would want to keep those. We did have one comment, number 2, that we had asked. There's a couple of easements that still need to have some labels added to it, so we would need to keep that. So really, all 6 comments would still need to remain. Again, 5 of the 6 are from Consolidated Utility District. It is consistent with the approved preliminary plat and zoning PRD that was approved for this development, and so we would recommend it to you.
Chairman, I'm not going to vote on this one either.
Okay, we'll mark not participating with voting. Any questions for Kevin? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve with staff comments.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments from Tony. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Tim. I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On the site plans, the first item is Creature Comforts Edition, 13197 Old Nashville Highway, owner, developer, Joey Ryan.
This is a site plan for Premier Rent Care, Creature Comfort and Premier Rent Care share a same building at 13197 Old Nashville Highway. They're proposing for an expansion onto the existing facility. The existing building is about 5,666 square feet. This addition they're requesting for is 2,467 square feet, which would be about 30% of an addition to the existing structure. The proposed addition would create supplementary exam rooms, a treatment room, a surgery room to the existing services that are already present at the site. Staff didn't receive any updated site data table showing a square footage of vehicular use area or landscaping for this site. Most of this is already existing, so there shouldn't be much change regardless. Total parking required based on the square footage of the building is 28 spaces. They're already exceeding this with 29 spaces. And that would require 2 spaces of handicap parking, and they're meeting that requirement as well. The landscape plan shows preservation of the existing landscaping along the private entrance off of Old Nashville Highway. Shrubbery along Old Nashville is proposed to be removed and replaced with new trees and shrubbery. Additional landscape is not required due to no additional vehicular use area added to this site. Architectural elevations for this addition show base material below the first level windows frames to be a stone veneer. The remaining elevation materials will be constructed with a fiber cementitious siding, which all of these are consistent with the existing building on site. Had a couple standard comments and staff comments to go over. First staff comment, to ensure the proposed trees that are being planted along Old Nashville Highway utilize a shallow root system due to the proximity of a 12-inch water main that does run along Old Nashville Highway. The engineer did state that the proposed tree, which is a cryptomeria, has a shallow root system. We haven't had a chance to look into this enough to verify this is a shallow rooted tree, but staff will look into this further to verify. We also asked them to show a site data table with the existing vehicular use area and existing and proposed landscaping. So staff would like these numbers to be shown, but like I said previously, these numbers should not have changed from the previous submittal originally. There was some discrepancy about the number of parking spaces shown. That comment can be removed, as well as comment 4 for the parking spaces in a row without a landscape island. Applicant did show us a landscape island to be installed. And then one of the parking spaces near the addition is an odd shape, so staff just wanted the applicant to provide dimensions on that. Staff didn't see any comment regarding the dimensions of that space, but it does appear to be bigger than the 9-foot minimum requirement, so we're okay with that, just so long as they provide us with the dimensions of it. And with that, staff would recommend approval with that. We're keeping on the staff comments 1, 2, and 5.
Mitch, this is the veterinarian building, correct? Not the actual kennel building?
Correct. They share the same building, but this is an addition for the vet care building.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Move to approve the staff comment.
I have a motion from Mark to approve with staff comments, so I have a second.
Second.
Let's go with Andrew. I think you got in there first. Second from Andrew. Motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is fleet equipment trailer storage, 2233 Industrial Road, owner, developer, Fleet Equipment. Mitch?
This is a site plan that you guys have seen in the past. It came back originally in 2017. They are a company that they're planning on utilizing this area for trailer storage. Currently, it sits on about 24.1 acres, and it's at 2233 Industrial Road. Property is zoned PUD, and the proposed use is for trailer storage, and this is allowed by the right for the PUD zoning. Property is bound to the north and west by Laverne city limits, to the east by a wooded section of the airport district, to the south by 2 construction companies and a vacant parcel. Surrounding zoning consists of A1 for the airport district, I3 in Smyrna, and C2 and R2 in Laverne. Square footage for vehicular use area, 666,584 square feet. Required landscaping, 53,326 square feet. Applicants proposing for 80,121, so they're meeting our minimum requirement. Parking required 21 spaces for the office building and the guard shack. They are showing for 54 spaces, and handicap required of 3 spaces, and they are showing all 3 of those spaces as well. Landscape plan shows existing vegetation located along the southwestern and western property lines to remain. In addition to the remaining vegetation, applicants proposing a variety of trees and shrubs which will be placed around the parking lot and the office building. Architectural elevations show a primary material of metal and a secondary material of stacked stone to be used as exterior finishes on the office building. Stone extends up 4 feet in height from the base of the building. Total height of the building is 30 feet with an 18-inch accent band between the first and second floors. The guard shack is proposed to be built with metal and include a brick landing. built underneath a 20-foot metal open-sided structure. One standard comment about the signs requiring a separate permit, which is standard on most other plans. And couple staff comments to go through. Staff comment 1, the site plan was approved back in 2017 and it has since expired. The developer now wishes to obtain building permits, so the site plan has been resubmitted for you guys to review. We asked them to submit a traffic study regarding the effects of this development on Aviation Parkway and Lowry Street and 3 Industrial Road. We did receive this. Staff has not had a chance to review it yet, but we did receive it. Staff comment 3 and 4 are from Public Works. TDEC requires 70% grass coverage of all open areas. Please ensure this requirement is being met. This site has started construction since 2017, and we weren't really aware of this going on, so as a result, Public Works to go out and made a site visit, and these comments are a result of the visit out at the site. Staff comment 4, the slope adjacent to the outlet structure, which drains into the detention pond, has 1 or 2 gullies in it, while the rock apron adjacent to this, the same outlet structure needs more fabric and rock applied. The bare soil between the structure and the detention pond needs to be reseeded. We also added a last comment, just staff in the planning department. The landscape buffer requirement back in 2017 when this originally came through was for a 20-foot buffer along the outside of the perimeter of the property. Plans from 2017 showed a retention of the existing landscaping along the northern property line. This is adjoining the Laverne limits that adjoins a residential district. Since approval, it appears most of the existing vegetation was removed, leaving a strip of landscaping along the property line only. Current requirements for an industrial district abutting a residential is a type D buffer, which is at least 20 feet wide with a 4-foot tall, 5-foot wide berm at the top of it. Staff would recommend at a minimum a 20-foot wide buffer if it is not currently meeting that requirement at this time. So with that, staff would recommend approval with the comments. They said they came through originally in 2017 and they have expired since that time frame, so they have resubmitted for approval again.
Mitch?
I remember when this came in, it's since expired. Kevin, does this, from the original time it was proposed, has anything changed? I know we required like hard surfaces for the parking of the trailer. It was gravel proposed, I think, at one time. We required hard surface, if I remember.
Required to be paved. And that comment regarding the traffic study was a comment from the original approval. The condition was placed on by the planning commission at that time to require that traffic study.
And help me understand, did we have something in there that didn't allow repairs there?
There was talk at their original submittal, there was talk about having a building for repairs. They're not proposing that at this time at all, no. They're basically, even though the plan still shows the office, this was a resubmittal essentially of what was approved before.
Right.
So, my understanding is they're not even looking at building the office right now. They're primarily just gonna have the parking the vehicles or the trailers there, storing them there, and that they're gonna have the office or the guard shack and the canopy where they pull in and out. That's pretty much it as far as actual structures. They have graded the site. They basically they have paved the site. The approval also required the extension of 3 Industrial to serve the site, and they have recently paved that.
That was my next question.
So that has very recently been done, so, and the water and sewer lines have been extended. I don't think they've connected anything to their buildings or anything, because they did put in the guard shack and the canopy without permits. And this was part of the issue. We discovered all this and they had to come back. That's why they're coming back now.
So really, there's not much that's changed here?
Not much has changed, no.
Okay.
It's basically the same plan. Again, their original approval did have, they were gonna retain a lot of the existing landscaping, and it appears just from, we haven't been out there and drove the site yet. We're just looking at an aerial photo from last year, but in their grading, it did appear they did eliminate a lot of that buffer that we had thought was gonna be there, and so that's why we're thinking they'll need to go back and do that now.
And the type D buffer that's proposed, that's about it's the strongest buffer.
It's strongest, and that would really only affect that kind of that northwest corner, because that's where it abuts residential. The most of the border is industrial,
Right.
other industrial zoning or commercial zoning in Laverne, I believe.
Okay.
That was our main concern, we wanted to address that, because there's a couple of houses at the end of that street that are right next to that area, so. So they do, at minimum, if we wanted to go back to what was required when this was approved originally, that would be fine, but at minimum, we think we need to go back to that. If it were today, it would be a more substantial buffer in that area.
So this buffer would have to be in place before they were granted a CO, correct?
Yes.
The structures they've already got on there already, do they meet all the criteria?
Yeah, I mean, well, as far as that, the
Guard shack?
guard
canopy?
shack, we had to go back and look at the guard shack. The canopy, yes, I mean, that's exactly what they talked about. We'd have to go back and look at the guard shack, and I don't know, we'd have to look at that. It's actually a prefabricated building. It wasn't anything that was built on site.
And this is the last piece of property on this side of the street? The road
Correct.
dead ends just on the end of this property?
Correct, yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the staff comments.
I have a motion to approve the staff comments from Mark. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Regina. I have a motion and a second to approve the staff comments. Any questions or further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item under site plans, Florence Road Storage 2, 7085 Florence Road. Owner, developer Sean Saunders.
This is a more or less an expansion across the street from the existing Florence Road self-storage. This is on a tract with, it has a single house currently. It's at 7112 Florence Road. The expansion would have 6 buildings, 1 RV/boat storage building, 2 covered storage buildings with a solid back wall, and 3 typical self-storage buildings that are just constructed of metal. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R1 and R3 on both sides and rear of the property. Being in an industrial district, abutting a residential district, a Type D landscape buffer will be required to be installed. Type D buffer is at least 20 feet in width with a berm at least 4 feet high and 5 feet wide at the top. Landscaping at the top of the berm shall be similar to Type C buffer, which are alternating offset evergreens and supplemented with shrubs or hedges in between those trees. Square footage of vehicular use area, we're looking at 59,100 square feet, which would require 4,728 square feet of landscaping. Applicant is exceeding this requirement with proposed of 23,176 square feet. The site across the street for the storage facility, they're going to be using that office area as the main site for parking and any questions for this development. So as a result, there's going to be no parking or handicap spaces required as part of this development. Landscape plan shows perimeter landscape buffer around all 3 residentially adjoining parcels. Like I said before, the Type D buffer will be required as this development is an industrial use abutting a residential district. Architectural elevations show the interior buildings to be constructed with metal siding and metal roll-up doors, similar to the storage units in the first phase. Buildings facing Florence Road are showing elevation utilizing brick or stone. The elevations have not been provided for buildings E, which are proposed to be similar to building A, nor building F, which is the RV and boat storage building. Had a couple of standard comments for this, all of which will remain, and a couple staff comments to go over. Staff comment 1 regarding the address unit number layout has been addressed. Comment 2, revised auto turn utilizing the correct Town of Smyrna fire truck. The previous submittal didn't meet the current Town of Smyrna ladder truck length requirements, so the applicant did submit revised plans showing the correct truck length. We're going to let the fire department review that to ensure compliance. Comment 3, to submit a plat showing right-of-way dedication 40 foot from the center line of Florence Road per the original PID approval. The applicant did submit this as an exhibit, but staff will still need a final plat to be submitted. Comment 4, to provide architectural elevations for buildings E and F. We did receive buildings A, B, C, D, and E, or A, B, C, D, not E and F. So the applicant did respond to this comment by saying buildings B, C, and D, which are metal but longer doors. Owner still finalizing the size of building F, which is why we haven't received those plans yet. Comment 5 regarding the landscape berm. Within type D buffer is required to be 4 feet high and 5 feet wide. The comment was added for the landscape berm being added. It is 4 feet tall. Plans show it being 4 feet wide, so we just need that to be added a foot wider to be 5 feet. Comment 6 has been addressed and relocated for the trees were originally shown in the right-of-way. We asked them to move it back. They have been relocated. Comment 7, to show sediment control measures and details. Public Works hadn't had a chance to review these plans yet, so we're going to keep that comment. Comment 8, to revise plans to remove the split-face block and show brick or stone per design review for the ends of all buildings. The applicant did revise these plans to show brick or stone instead of the split-face block, so that comment can be removed. Comment 9, units may be required to be sprinkled. We asked the applicant to show the construction type to determine. That comment will be addressed at the building permit stage. Comment 10, to show the current zoning of the property. The applicant did note it as a PUD zoning. It is a PID zoning. So we just asked him to fix that issue, and with those comments, we would recommend approval.
Questions for Mitchell, staff?
Mitchell, it says building A is in the, it's facing the end, facing Florence Road, would have the brick or stone.
Correct.
Is E, will E have that as well? It's not listed here, but it's still facing Florence.
Yes, from what I understand, based on the applicant's comments, is that it will be similar to those interior units.
Okay.
All of which have the same side facing Florence, and that was noted that they're going to be brick or stone material.
Okay.
Could you talk to me a little bit about what units might be required to be sprinkled and what construction type would determine that?
That was a codes comment and a fire department comment. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly what that all details. That's a comment that when they submit plans to building department, that'll be reviewed by the building official to make the determination on whether sprinkling is required for those units.
Typically, do we require that if it's a metal building with metal roof, metal framing?
So I don't think so. That's a question I really have to defer to the codes department or fire department about. I don't think we have in the past, but that is a comment that they, I believe it was actually, if I remember correct, I believe it was someone from the fire department that mentioned it, but I honestly don't believe we have, but I can't speak to that with 100% certainty.
I guess my concern would be if it were in a non-climatized building.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there, and I don't know if there's, I know there are some options for fire suppression that aren't water, so I don't know if that's what they're thinking about. I don't know. Again, that was a comment that they had made. So I can't really, don't know that I can answer the question, so I apologize for that.
It harkens back to the old produce stand that we made sprinkle, remember that?
Yeah. By the next meeting, could you bring that, maybe just, at the, under other at the end of the meeting? Could we just take a look at what's required there?
Okay.
And the reasons, and if there are alternative suppression systems? Because I'm trying to figure out how you would do it in a non-climatized building. It just, certainly water wouldn't seem an option.
Right.
You'd have to go with a powder.
I mean, there's gonna be something, yeah, the fire code and building code, I mean, it's, dictated, so I'll speak with them
Okay,
and maybe get enough information to, I can come back and speak to it more intelligently next month.
okay.
I guess I just want to tag that, and I appreciate the answer. I know you don't have that answer. I'm just trying to get my head around the construction type would determine that apparently, correct?
Generally, the adopted international fire code will dictate those terms and what your options are and all those types of things. We can bring that in just so you can see what those
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it'd be beneficial. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Mitchell, on the property here, I know there's residential on both sides of this as far as lighting at night. Do you know, will that
We
meet all
haven't-
our requirements as well, where it's not shining in the neighbors or on the neighbors?
We haven't received a lighting plan for this development yet,
Okay.
but we'll ensure that it doesn't
Okay.
shine on any of the adjoining residential districts.
They did have, I mean, the rear of the building that backs up to just houses and both sides, I mean, I know those are solid walls.
All the way back to the
down.
pad?
Yeah, but now you have where the detention pond is in the corner, there's not gonna be building in between there and those
Right.
residences, so we would need to look at it.
But the building F, the back of building F would go all the way down? That's that very back building, the
Right.
RV and boat storage? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you would, but yeah, we would be sure that everything's pointed internally to those drive aisles that are in between the buildings, certainly.
Additional questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve a staff comment.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion to approve and a second to approve with staff comments. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is Seven Oaks Business Park Phase 2B, 869 Seven Oaks Boulevard, owner developer Seven Oaks Investment LLC.
This is another expansion for a seventh building at Seven Oaks Business Park. It's at 881 Seven Oaks Boulevard. The proposed building is 14,000 square feet in size, which is within a couple hundred square feet of the other buildings that are present on site. The building would not be visible from Seven Oaks Boulevard. It is positioned behind an existing residential townhome development. There is sufficient space left on this parcel to the west of this proposed building to locate one additional building in the future. Access to the site will utilize the existing ingress and egress off of Seven Oaks Boulevard. Currently, this is the only access point to this entire site. There's an approximately 4-acre adjoining parcel, which is landlocked, and it is bordered by I-24, an apartment complex, and a townhome development in this business park. This does have the potential to be built out with additional office warehouse buildings. Square footage of vehicular use area for this site, 66,904 square feet. This is for the entire development, not just this single part. We're looking at a square footage of open space landscaping for 6,690 square feet. They're proposing for 22,078. Once again, this is for entire site, not just this small addition. Total parking required is 22 spaces for this addition, proposing for 23. And handicap parking of 1 space required, and they are showing for 2. Landscape plan shows shrubs be planted along Seven Oaks Boulevard, with trees planted along the adjoining property line to the north and around the paved area near the rear of the property. Architectural elevations for this building show a front and both sides to be brick, with the rear of the building using metal panels with roll-up doors. These elevations are consistent with other buildings within this development. Being the rear of this building would be visible from that townhome development, staff does recommend replacing the metal siding to be used as brick rather, because it does face that residential district. Couple standard comments that will remain, and staff comments to go over. Staff comment 1, the staff recommends the rear of the building to be brick, which would match the rest of the building facade, due to it facing the adjoining residential district. We did receive updated plans. Those plans showed the applicant adding a 8-foot tall privacy fence, which in addition to the 2 rows of evergreens, but kept it as metal for uniformity purposes. Comment 2 revised the dimensions of the fire truck used for auto turn. That is a comment we're going to leave fire department to address, but they did submit revised plans for that. And then comment 3, once again, about the fire suppression system being sprinkled with NFPA 13 system. So with that, staff would recommend approval with comments. The only comment that really remains is the comment regarding the elevations to be used on the rear of that building. With that, staff would recommend approval.
Questions or comments?
I haven't really got to it yet, which is, how tall is the building? You know, I'm just wondering, are the units gonna be on top?
The HVAC units,
Mike Allen doesn't like to climb stairs.
they're mounted in the rear, so it's below the roof line, in the rear of the unit.
Okay, and that rear side actually faces the townhome?
Yes, sir. The buildings themselves are roughly 13 and a half feet tall. We also did a couple of cross sections. It's toward the back of the submittal packet L30. Kind of showing you that visibility line there is going to be, even at day one, it pretty much sees about the top half, but within a few years of growth, you might see just intermittent through there, similar to what you see out there today on the existing units. But you would not see the bulk of the building.
Well, I kind of wondered if they're gonna be on top, we'd make sure we had some sort of screening, a parapet or something that blocked it, but if it's not.
Yes, sir, it's down. What are those mounted, like 8 feet tall, 10 feet? About 8. So they offset them from the door. I think it's kind of a little shelf they sit on, so they're off the ground.
Other questions for Matt while we've got him up here, or comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the staff comments.
I have a motion to approve the staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Tony.
Can we talk about the metal on the back?
Staff comments suggested brick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We would really like to keep the metal just because it's consistent and, you know, you're about 140 feet away from those townhomes. You've got their carport in between those to there. It's very consistent with what else is out there.
We have anything else that backs up there that's not using brick, Kevin?
All the other buildings that are in this development, the rears of the buildings are metal, but they back up to one another.
Right.
And so, or they back up to the interstate. So
So this is visible from the living.
this is the only one, and this is the rest of their concept plan, which is, I've got up there on the screen now. Their concept plan, it'll be the sides of those buildings, pretty much that meet up until you get all the way to the very back, which you might have one building that backs up to some those apartments, but you got some open space in between there still. So this may be the only building that would really even be effective by that. You know, they did recommend or did request the taller fence in lieu of, is what they requested to you to consider. So we was looking at it just since it does butt up to that residential building. I mean, you're still gonna have the roll-up doors, so I mean, you're still gonna have that piece of it too, but
It's not that much brick, really. I mean,
I can't speak to the cost. We've got the contractor here. He can probably speak to that a little bit better than I can.
Okay, if you could come up and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Joey Ryan. I'm a partner at Dow Smith Design Build, and I'm also a resident here in Smyrna since 1999. We originally built this first 4 buildings in 2005. Some of you may remember when it was built. Mr. Parks took quite the risk in investing out there and had quite the hard time in the recession. And this has really been a bright spot, in my opinion, for our town. It's come roaring back since the recession ended. There's 22 businesses over there right now. 21 of those businesses has relocated from either Nashville or Murfreesboro. Some of you may not know that. Over 120 jobs there. So it's an ideal location for businesses to relocate, folks who don't want to drive to Nashville, and most importantly, a more economical rate than what they'd pay either in Nashville or Murfreesboro or Nolensville for that instance. So cost conscious is being cost conscious is a concern for us. That's about $30,000 worth of brick on the back. I want to be, sensitive to the condos. Bob and I, when we came before, some of you may have been on the planning commission then, we agreed to the 8-foot fence along the property line there. I don't know if Kevin can.
it's on the side, what would be the side property line?
It is. You can
up
see, I
here.
was by there yesterday. You can
Yeah.
still see the back of the buildings
Right here.
from the apartments now. You can also see the back of building number 3 from Seven Oaks Boulevard. So I don't feel like we're decreasing the standard over there. I do, we've agreed to adding the fence if necessary. Would be happy to do that as we did in the past, add the evergreens as well. And, the condos are all vinyl siding, so I don't think we're decreasing that standard as well on the rear of the building. There is some brick on the front of those. We do want to be good neighbors, but we are trying to keep some costs under control and keep the rent rate effective as we're trying to relocate more businesses here, so I appreciate the consideration.
Joey, what kind of fencing are you proposing?
Right now, there's an 8-foot staggered wood fence. It's still in great shape since we did it. I was a young 27-year-old when we did it the first time. But it's in great shape. It's 8 foot tall, and it's held up really well. There was some concern. I don't think we've heard any from the condo association this time around. There was some concern the first time around about the development. And to my knowledge, Mr. Blankenship, who is one of the owners here at the property, he's here now. I don't think we've had any complaints from the neighborhood that I know of. Kevin could probably speak to that if we've had any.
I don't know that we've had any, no.
Yeah.
And then you're
Recall
also
that.
proposing the tree line buffer on top of that.
Tree line buffer in addition to the fence, and those evergreens will grow up. And it's just the top 3 or 4 feet. I know if we could do away with the metal, that would be ideal for everybody, but we are trying to keep costs down, to be honest with you. And it's a dark bronze metal.
That was my next question.
It's a dark bronze metal. It's consistent. We have lots, we put storefront metal on the back a lot of times for those buildings. We relocated Foley Products, who was Sherman Dixie. They took all office space, and we actually put storefront windows on the rear in lieu of the overhead doors. We've done that also for Premier Title and for some other business who have relocated their systems group out of Nashville. There at the I-40 intersection. So there will probably end up being some storefront on the back as well. But they are dark bronze. I think as a town member, resident here, I do think the dark bronze is a little bit nicer than another color metal. So we are trying to make an effort to keep things. We keep the air conditioners behind the building off the ground so they're not hit, they're not a distraction. And for safety and security as well.
How is the fence maintained, or how, if it's...
It governs the maintenance of that fence.
The existing 6 buildings, there's an association there that handles all of the groundskeeping, the landscaping, the fencing. They share water meters, those type of things. So it is ran by a condo association for the businesses.
With the fencing and the evergreens, you're probably not going to see that too much anyway. Wasn't it last month we talked about I know it's facing a different direction, but we talked about a bronze medal being used in place of EFS.
We did talk about a building that's on
That's
Seven
the
Oaks
one that got
Boulevard.
deferred
That's the one that got deferred
tonight,
again, tonight, yes. We did talk about that, and we'd asked for, they had a product that they were wanting to show us.
You can see those from interstate as well. Building number 5 and 6 are very visible. The rear is visible from the interstate. The dark bronze metal blends in with the tree line, and you can see that, especially during the winter months. You can see it through the tree line if you're going down I-24.
Is there a function of metal over form when you're looking at the loading dock areas and the roll-up doors and things like that?
We say that one more time.
Is there a function, more of a function, in having a metal exterior where you've got the roll-up doors versus a brick, or?
It's easier to repair it.
It's easier to
have to
repair.
hit it.
It is easier to repair. As some of you know, Tim, I know you insure some industrial sites. The doors can take a beating in and out if there's a small forklift being used. It does drive up the cost of the building because these are pre-engineered metal buildings. And it does get beat up from time to time. So when you hit a brick, you've got to replace the whole wall. And so it changes the whole system back there. And we have to have pipe bollards installed to protect the corners. So it is a little bit easier from a maintenance standpoint.
I think it's been my experience, it's a lot easier to match metal than it is brick, especially after 20 years or 10 years or even 5 at this point.
We recently, the last 2 buildings, we did, Mr. Parks wanted to upgrade the color of the building from the red to a more brown neutral color, and we plan on continuing that here now. I've actually already reserved what brick I thought we needed at Alley Cassidy, but it is, you're correct, Tim.
All right. And if I understand correctly, most of the buildings, as far as, other than the way they're oriented, we do have the brick fronts and the rear elevations are more metal. Is that correct?
On every other building in this complex, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Kevin, how do you feel from a staff perspective, having?
We were just thinking about it from the standpoint of the folks that live in the townhomes, just having a little bit higher grade of what building that they're looking at. And the fence and the landscaping that is an alternative that can certainly be considered. I think that it may be fine. But that was just our concern, though.
Okay.
Because all the other buildings either face one another, the metal piece, or it faces the interstate, and some more people are living. So, and from a security standpoint, having the fence there between them and that would be helpful too, I'm sure.
Okay.
In the back of those buildings.
The wood fence, is it natural finish?
It is. It's a honey finish now.
Okay.
It's a honey finish now.
It's almost redundant to put a fence and a buffer there that's going to hide it anyway.
It's the height of the tree. The trees will get taller than the 8-foot
Right.
fence.
Yeah,
So
you
that
won't
was
see
the
that.
intent with Rob at SEC, the landscape architect, to design that sight line so that eventually they would see nothing. But you can see metal now. Again, we want to be good neighbors, but you can see metal now from that drive, from the rear car porch, from the parking lot back there for the condos. You can see it now.
Then Tim,
So what's the next step? Is
Well,
there a vote?
I'm
Got a
gonna,
motion and a second.
You have
We've got a motion and a
You
second
could vote on the
to include-
motion, you could also amend the motion.
Yeah, somebody could amend it.
and I'm fine to amend my motion for approval with staff comments, but remove staff comment number 1.
In lieu of the buffers.
yeah, I want to make sure that we're clear that we're adding the fence and the trees.
And that's what's shown now
Yeah.
on the submitted
Okay.
site plan.
If you approve the plans as they've been submitted, that would be there.
Okay. Tony, are you good?
Yes.
Okay. Then I have an amended motion and second to approve with some of the staff comments with the exception of number 1.
Number 1.
All right.
Yeah.
Got that out. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item under site plans is Stephen Smyrna Airport Hangar, Thunderbird Drive, owner developer, Smyrna Rutherford County Airport Authority.
To the Airport Authority's property. Future hangar and office space would be located off an extension of Thunderbird Drive, which is currently located approximately 1,500 feet southeast of this leased area. Leased area would encompass 12.6 acres. Within this area, as part of this phase of development, would be a 40,608 square foot maintenance hangar and a 16,942 square foot maintenance shop and office. There's an identically sized 40,608 square foot maintenance hangar that is proposed for future development north of the proposed office building situated in between these two hangars. Vehicular use area, 45,096 square feet, which would require 3,607 square feet of landscaping. The applicant's proposing for 4,634 square feet, so they're meeting that requirement. Total parking required at the site, 83 spaces, and they are proposing for 83 as well, and they're meeting this requirement. And handicap spaces, requirement of 4, and they're meeting this requirement with 4 spaces as well. Landscape plan shows variety of shrubs and trees to be planted in front of the hangar and office, as well as within landscape islands around the perimeter of the parking lot. Architectural elevations show the hangar to be constructed using a metal material, which is consistent with other hangars at the airport. And we have a couple standard comments as well as staff comments to go over. Staff comment 1 regarding the construction entrance, rock thickness and diameter, that's been fixed, so that comment can be removed. Comment 2 regarding labeling the road name on all plan pages has been adjusted, and that comment can be removed. Comment 3, to show the materials used for the dumpster enclosure, they are showing a split face rock wall to be used, so that comment can be removed. Comment 4 is a utilities comment. All backflow preventers must be reduced pressure type. Utilities did not have a chance to review these plans after they were submitted, so we're going to leave these comments. Comment 5, the water line extension is required to be installed with fire flow provided prior to issuance of a building permit. Staff did receive an email from the Airport Authority stating they're aware that the certificate of occupancy will be held until the road extension and utilities are in place, but want construction of the hangar to take place concurrently with the road and utility installation. Comment 6, the parking requirement is 1 space per 400 square feet, so that there was a little bit of discrepancy regarding the number of parking spaces at the site. This comment has been addressed, and we can remove that comment. Comment 7, there's an existing lift station in the southwest corner. A gravity line will need to be extended to this lift station. And comment 8, once again, our sprinkler system comment for NFPA 409 system. So with that, staff would recommend approval.
Questions for Mitch?
Not a question, but that airport just keeps growing out there, doesn't it, John?
Yes.
And, you know, that's, it kind of helps drive economically some of what Smyrna's all about, so. And before I forget, I would love for John to talk a little bit about the Thunderbirds while he's here.
You want to ride?
I do.
You
Been upside down once already.
You can talk about the hangar too, if you like.
John Black, I'm the airport director at Smyrna Airport, and we are fully supportive of this project. Paul Lamb was here, our board member, he had another meeting he had to run off to, but the whole board supports this, and they've approved this plan already before it came to you. To give you a little background on Stevens, they moved here about 6 months ago from Nashville Airport, and they have 42 employees, highly paid jobs, all maintenance technicians, bringing a lot more revenue to Rutherford County and Smyrna, and a lot more airplanes to the airport. So they're temporarily housed in one of the Hollingshead hangars right now, and they'll be moving into this, and then effectively doubling that staff once they build that second hangar. So this is a great project for us. We talked about the road. We're going to extend Thunderbird Drive, and this really gives us a good reason to do that. It'll extend Thunderbird from the cul-de-sac where it is now and connect with the cul-de-sac of Liberator Lane, which is part of the Hillwood development. and then connect the water line, and the sewer line is already there. So this will, in effect, be perfect for their development, but it also opens up about 35 acres between this development and what we did at Blue Angel Way. So now we'll start backfilling with that, and it has direct taxiway access. So it's a great project for those reasons, and they've been a pleasure to work with. They're going to do it right, and they're going to do it the right way. So while I'm up here, I just got some information from the state that I wanted to share with you. This is an economic impact study done by the Aeronautics Division of the state of Tennessee. They just put this out. And it takes a look at airports all across the state and individually. Now, we did an economic impact study at Smyrna Airport 9 years ago through MTSU, and the economic impact was $74 million a year. So this one just came out. 9 years later, the economic impact of Smyrna Airport is now $232 million. It's effectively tripled. And we're exactly on par with the Tri-Cities Airport, and we're really the fifth most economic impact of airports across the state. The only ones that beat us are the ones that have passenger service. So they have parking and they have ticket sales and all that. So it's pretty strong statement there. And appreciate your consideration of this project. And yes, the Thunderbirds are coming back for an air show June 5th and 6th. We're going to have the show. We're going to do a socially distanced air show. Which means, what does that mean? That means that we are not going to have general admission tickets. We're going to have reserved seating only. So just like maybe you go to a football game, you're going to go to row, queue and go down and go over and buy seats. So it'll be good. We all need to get out and do some things like that. And I think it'll be great for the community. And you might see one of the Thunderbirds fly in here for a quick visit on February 15th. So if you hear a little noise February 15th, they're coming for an advance visit.
Social distancing for the pilots is a little bit difficult, isn't it? I mean,
Very difficult in the cockpit.
They're pretty,
But they wear a mask.
But they do wear masks. Yeah. Sometimes they wear them, like oxygen.
Thank you, John.
Before you leave, John, what do you foresee, just your personal vision over the next, let's do it real short, 5 years, the growth with the airport and support business that could possibly come around the airport?
Well, this project, like I mentioned, opening up that 35 acres is very, very important. And the demand, not just in Middle Tennessee, but across the southeast, there is huge demand for hangar space. In Tennessee in particular, because the state stopped helping fund hangars and so forth, so it's been very difficult for people to build hangars. So it's probably that 35 acres is going to develop very quickly. As well as on the east side of the airport, we're getting ready to build a hangar there. On the other side that came through a month or so ago, we have another smaller hangar that's going to develop over there. And we have waiting lists that are very long for people who want to move into Smyrna, move aircraft in there. So I think next 5 years you're going to see a lot more growth, and we're going to be back in here with more plans and more development.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve, staff comments.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
Multiple seconds.
Multiple.
I have a motion to approve and a second with staff comments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Looks like our last item under site plans is Traditions of Smyrna. 700 Great Circle Owner-Developer Traditions of Smyrna.
Yeah, this is an addition, Phase 2 at the Traditions of Smyrna facility. Will be used as an independent living facility. Current building on site is being utilized as an assisted living facility, just to show a little bit of differentiation between the two of them. Assisted living facility takes a more hands-on care approach to the tenants for those who need more help with their daily lives, while an independent living facility provides independence for those individuals, but does not provide access to medical or nursing care. As part of this phase of the development, 68 units will be provided in a 4-story, 79,138 square foot building. Vehicular use area at the site, between Phase 1 and Phase 2, we're looking at about 2.58 acres, which would require 11,238 square feet of landscaping. Applicant's proposing for 11,313 square feet. Total parking required, 101 spaces between both developments. Phase 2 alone will have 42 spaces, but between both of these phases together, we're looking at about 113 spaces combined. Handicap parking for this phase, 2 spaces, and they're showing for 2 spaces as well. This landscape plan shows a variety of shrubs to be planted around the base of the building and around the perimeter of the parking lot. Trees are also proposed to be planted in landscape islands. Architectural elevations show primary material of cementitious siding with brick accents, which does match the first building of this development. A couple standard comments, all to be remaining. Staff comments, I have a couple of them. Comment 1, the rock diameter at the construction entrance to be 8 inches thick and 2 to 4 inches in diameter. Comment 2, relocate a tree which was shown on top of a water line near a fire hydrant in the northwestern corner of the building in a landscape island. Staff recommends that shrubbery be added in lieu of that tree, just to still provide a little bit of landscaping, but get the deep-rooted tree out of any danger area near a hydrant or a water line. And comment 3 on sheet C 7.0 to change the double detector shown as a U6 to a reduced pressure U5. Utilities comment, didn't have a chance to review it yet, so at this time we'll have all comments remain. And with that, staff would recommend approval with those comments.
Questions for staff?
This all is consistent with the other building, right? Matches the other building.
It matches the other building,
Yeah.
it matches the PUD amendment you all looked at
Yeah.
a month or so ago.
Other questions?
So the clientele of this building will specifically be more mature adults, is that correct? Or
It is a 55 and up requirement
Is
that
it
we put in
55 and up
place,
requirement?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be an independent living for seniors, yeah, senior apartment type building.
Tim, I appreciate that, though, the more mature comment. Thank you.
Other questions or comments other than maturity?
I move to approve a staff comment.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Andrew. Was that Tony? Second from Tony. I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm doing my best to do impersonation.
You did good. Our next item is a mandatory referral, Morton Lane right-of-way abandonment.
Yeah, as stated earlier, when the plat was reviewed, this is a request that the town abandon the right-of-way for the existing right-of-way of Morton Lane where it has been realigned and reconstructed. The planning commission is required to review this and make a recommendation to council, finding on whether or not it is in keeping with the adopted comprehensive plan. Staff would recommend approval of this. We did have in your packet the letter, as well as the legal description of the right-of-way that they're requesting, and then just an exhibit that goes along with that. So, again, would be, if council approves that, it would then be with the recording of the plat and all, that would be combined with the area that was shown as Lot 1 there on the plat that you looked at earlier. And again, that's all that I have.
Okay. Questions or discussion?
Move to approve staff comment.
I have a motion to approve staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. February bond review report.
We got a few this month. First one, we would recommend releasing is Traditions of Smyrna, the site that we just looked at. This is the landscaping for the phase one of that. That has been completed now, so we can release that one. Rooker's Bend, section 1, phase 1. Did talk to the developer there. They are close to being built out. He said, or they have at least have permits on the last lots. He plans on finishing those in the next few months and would finish the improvements at that time, so we would recommend a 6-month extension on that to get those improvements completed. Smyrna Industrial Park, this is actually the road improvements and water and sewer improvements that were on the site for the fleet equipment site plan that you looked at earlier. They had some comments there. We would recommend an extension of this one for 6 more months so they can get everything finished on that. They're getting close, but we do want to still hold on to that bond for 6 more months. The liquor store on 1868 Allenville Road, there's still some landscaping they got to replace there. I do want to extend it 6 more months. If items aren't completed this spring, we'll take action and enforce the ordinance on that one to get those replaced. Woodmont, section 6C, it's about 72% built out, so it's not built out yet. I didn't hear from the developer prior to the package, but have since that time. They do plan on completion there in the fall. So we would recommend a 6-month extension on that. Amberton Section 2 is about 100% built out now. Did not hear back from the developer on that one. We have had this one now. It is 2 years now, so I would recommend only 6 more months on that one. And then Woodcrest 5 is one we've had about 3 years. They are about 89% built out. Again, did not hear from the developer on that one, but would recommend 6 more months on that one. Maybe they can get that finished up this summer. So that's all I got.
Kevin, the ones that are 100% built out, I mean, I kind of get 6 months now with weather and things like that, but once we get to the next go-around, if we're not there, what can we do to tighten this up a bit?
Obviously, ultimately, council could call the bond. I mean, we always try to avoid that as much as possible, but that is the ultimate decision that could be made. I think what you can do, what we have done in the past when things seem to drag on a little bit, and it's really is ready to finish up, is I generally try to have that conversation with the developer at that point. And we typically at that point, they go ahead and finish it for the most part, but every now and then, I'll have to make a recommendation that we call the bond because they just don't seem to be making any progress. I agree. When they get to that 95, 100% built out, they need to go ahead and finish the job and get it done because we want them to wait till they get most of the heavy construction traffic out of there, but at some point you got to finish the job and get out of there and get done.
So is that something that we can follow up with a letter and your phone call, or how do we?
Yeah, what we typically do is if, in 6 months, if that one that's 100% built out and he still hasn't made any progress, certainly what we can do is we send a letter. I mean, tomorrow we'll be sending letters on all these. I mean, that's standard protocol, but maybe within that letter, we'll put some additional wording that, the planning commission expects performance, within the next 6 months to be completed or something like that, or we may be calling the bond. I mean, I think putting it in writing, like you're saying, in addition to that phone call that I would make or to talk to them.
I just think there'd be an expectation as a resident if you were living in a subdivision that was 100% built out, or a section that called for certain things and we were at a year and then year and a half and 2 years. Yeah, I just think there's an expectation that it should get done, and I think we just need to hold people's feet to the fire there.
Sure.
Other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the bond review. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the bond review. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Staff comments, other business.
Only one thing I have, you all had received an invitation, and I think several of you have acknowledged it, but on 3 weeks from tonight, on the 25th, at 4 o'clock, we were having we haven't done one of these in a while with COVID and everything, but council and planning commission having kind of a joint update on some of the road projects around town, and just provide that, so you keep you all in the loop on what's going on with those projects. And so that's at 4 o'clock on the 25th, which is 3 weeks from tonight, and it'll be in the large conference room here at Town Hall. So I just want to remind everybody about that.
I was going to say, can you get a calendar invite to the commission?
I think we did.
Okay. I haven't seen it, have I?
Actually, I think you may be one of them that has acknowledged it.
I may have what?
I think you had acknowledged it, actually. I looked at it.
Hey, if I acknowledge it, if I acknowledged it and it's on my calendar, I will be there. But I couldn't tell you what I'm doing tomorrow until I look at my
It
calendar.
is the night of the council workshop at 5, so.
Oh, that one, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Some of us have to help him sometimes.
Thank you.
So, but I believe
Is
planning
Sam really going to be done by then, do you think?
February 25th?
Yeah.
Mostly what the plates are done and the road cuts are paid.
We'll be looking at October-ish.
We could push on, I'm afraid we're gonna push into winter for our final pavement, so we may be pushing out a little bit further on that, just on the
End of the year,
final
perhaps?
surfacing.
Yeah.
2021.
Possibly, I said, we'll see how,
We don't want possibly.
weather permitting.
It's a yes.
Any further comments from the commission? Does anybody know anything else that's on my calendar? We stand adjourned.